Which characteristics does an investigator countersign? A good dose of smell, naturally, but also a good psychological ability that brings him to think like a criminal so that to anticipate movements and reaching the solution. To all of this, it will also need, however, adding a notable dose of cold blood. You would, for instance, succeed in imagining an emotional Pisces who faints to the blood site while investigating on criminal events, to which is also necessary adding a certain scorn of the danger, a good dose of, though, and we can say that the detective's portrait, at least for what we imagine him have to be in the collective imaginary, is ready. Under the astral profile, however, which are the characteristics that are mostly approached to this portrait? To a superficial glance, the signs that mostly seem to reassume these characteristics are primarily three: Aries, Scorpio, and Capricorn. If, in fact, Aries possesses the dynamism, the courage, and above all, the attitude for the military career, Capricorn possesses the necessary coldness to emotionally face sometimes very difficult situations. Think to a serial killer's victims, with the necessary separation which allows to appraise every circumstance in suitable way. Regarding Scorpio, El Morpurgo writes in her La Natura dei Segni, Signs Nature. In other words, Scorpio has discovered the mechanism of the zodiacal conditionings which force us to develop a function, leaving us an illusion of liberty, but compassionately, the astral providence doesn't give him full conscience of a such discovery, leaving only him the tendency to disclose the mysteries and to uncover the skeletons in the closets. More fitting illustration of this way of acting we can find among the spies and the secret agents who snatch information under false or hidden identities. Scorpio's tendency to hide and to the silence produces an inestimable quality, to my eyes, the discretion. Discretion is typically essential in certain professions or activity, typically scorpionic, as note the espionage or the high finance or even the gangsterism. It appears evident as especially in certain types of investigation fitting to foil crimes as the traffic of drugs or mafia actions to hidden the own identity in order to even passing when necessary for a criminal component. It is nearly substantial. Insofar, Morpurgo's considerations do appear appropriate. But is it indeed that way? To verify these hypotheses' validity, they have been examined 471 police officers' birth data, day, month, and year, of which 43 devoted to specific detective activity. As you can note by the planetary positions table, the most frequent solar sign is Aquarius, followed by Gemini and Leo. Already from this datum, a peculiarity emerges. Aquarius and Leo are opposite signs. Because of the lack of birth time, it is not possible to consider the moon position, but anyway, the greatest frequency in the sign of Libra appears interesting, considering that as Aquarius includes a Saturnine sign. Remember, in fact, that Libra is Saturn exaltation sign. Continuing with our analysis, we also notice as Mars planet that in this context is surely of great interest. It is primarily placed in Leo. The absolute Saturn prevalence is added in the opposite Aquarius, but we specifically goes now to the relative data concerning detective sector. This time the Sun is mostly shown frequent in Aries, Cancer, Leo, and Capricorn, maintaining therefore confirmed the position in its own domicile, that is Leo. They are mostly confirmed the data that there would be attended as Aries and Capricorn, which replaces the other Saturnine skin, Aquarius. The distribution is absolutely identical regarding the moon. Now let you see the table related to the planetary aspects. Obviously excluding the sun-moon aspects for the lack of birth time, the predominant aspect concerning the sun becomes Sun-Saturn and as second place Sun-Neptune. Saturn speaks there about authority, rigor, and sense of the hierarchy, while Neptune underlines the transform, the ability to camouflage themselves, as well as the intuition. The action planet, Mars, form instead the largest number of aspects with a similar great deal planet Pluto, with which shares the rulership of the signs Aries and Scorpio, connected respectively with the attitude to the military life, Aries, and to the police environment, Scorpio. We specifically see now the planetary aspects table related to the detective sector. Among those people who develop an assignment of investigation, we find confirmed the aspect Sun Saturn, while the aspect Sun Neptune is replaced by the Sun Jupiter one. In addition to the aspects Mars Pluto, comes out Mars Uranus, underlining as working on the field needs also a notable promptness of reflexes dose. The detective for antonomasia, Sherlock Holmes, in his biography. You can read that Sherlock Holmes would have been born January 6, 1854, supposed in London. It is therefore an acute and rational Capricorn, ready to find the guilty with the only iron deductive strength of the reason. This sun forms trine to the dynamic Mars in the rational sign of Virgo, while Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto in Taurus strengthen the element Earth as the most preponderant in the chart. His inventor, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was born instead May 22nd, 1859 at 4:55 a.m. in Edinburgh, Scotland. He is therefore Gemini, but with a strong Aquarius dominant, being Sun conjunct to Uranus, and both in aspect to the Moon, just placed in Aquarius. In effect, Holmes, with his inseparable friend Watson, so different in the character, do really let you think about the twins Castor and Pollux, the two faces of the same medal. It is Watson, the one who very often gives Sprout to Holmes to resolve the case, but only this last one is able to reassemble the whole investigation puzzle's pieces, reaching the solution. From imagination to reality, Joey Petrosino. Giuseppe Petrosino, said Joe by the Americans, was born in Padula, a small place in proximity of Salerno, August 30th, 1860 at 3 a.m. He emigrated in 1873, going to reside soon outside New York, together with his father Prospero, who was tailor, and his family, composed by his mother, his sister, and three brothers. To the beginning, as he wouldn't weigh on the finances family, he was adapted with varied occupations, learning English language in night classes. On October 19th, 1883, he was enlisted in the New York Police Department, bringing the silver badge number 285. After a training period patrolling roads, he started to make career setting himself to the middle of the attention for his working methods, which were inhaled by passion, great intuition, intelligence, sense of responsibility, and high level of professionalism. The great dream and purpose of his life was above all one: to defeat mafia, which that time was denominated Black Hand. From his marriage, he had a daughter, and during those days he completed legendary operations, earning the President of the United States respect, of whom he was close friend, enjoying of great consideration. In 1895, the same President Roosevelt named him sergeant, and in 1905 he was promoted lieutenant. The command of the Italian Legion was entrusted to him, constituted by Italian agents, as he judged them essential to fight against the Black Hand. He declared war to the major bosses of mafia, delivering them to the justice. That's what no other police department was ever been able to do. Craftsman of acrobatic and legendary enterprises, his winning weapon was constituted by the continuous disguises that allowed him to live to closer, narrow contact with the world of the mafia. He is the one that we can attribute the great worth to have understood that the mafia in New York had its roots. in Sicily to the point that undertaken a trip in this island to inflict his deadly hit. The welcome was given to him by Prime Minister Giolitti, from whom he received as gift a gold watch. After having spent some days in his native house in Padula, where he met his repatriated brother Michael, he arrived in Sicily. He started a big job that would have conducted him to defeat once and forever the Mafia. But in the evening of March 12th, 1909, while he was crossing a square in Palermo with the favor of the obscurity, he was stricken by 4 revolver hits which threw him to the ground. He died as a soldier in the fulfillment of his duty. Under the astral profile, we find, as for Sherlock Holmes' father, Sir A. Conan Doyle, the moon in Aquarius, and the sun in aspect to Uranus, in this case squared. While, as Holmes has strong values of Earth, and particularly Capricorn, the sun in Virgo is conjunct to Saturn, while Mars is in Capricorn and in 6th house. The energy therefore expressed by Mars is expounded especially in the job Carthusian, precise as amanuensis, while the Capricorn factors, so strong, give the necessary coldness that brings him to face the most dramatic situations with absolute lucidity. Interesting Pluto, meaning the Mafia, situated in the most meaningful position of the chart, the MH, squaring Jupiter, situated in the 1st house, but above all to the ASC. The hate for the Mafia becomes therefore almost atavistic, while the trine that Pluto always forms to the Sun has allowed Petrosino to use the disguise as his best weapons to win Mafia with its same methods. Death is clearly signaled by Neptune, ruler of the house 8, situated in the sector 9, the distance that oversees. During the death, in fact, Petrosino was found far both from his usual residence in the United States and his native place, being happened this in Palermo. Besides really the characteristic of Pisces sign that entertains the house 8, and his ruler, Neptune, speaks there of a mysterious death that hardly brings to know the name of the guilty ones. The police for excellence. The FBI is officially born on July 26, 1908, characterized by the signs of fire, Sun, Mars, and Jupiter in Leo, Saturn in Aries. The chart of the American Federal Police speaks there of energy, dynamism, wish to rout at times the bad ones, exceeding sometimes in systems a bit by far west, Saturn in Aries, even if substantially correct and positive, trine Mars, Saturn. Equally strong, it is the sign of Cancer that sees the presence of Mercury, Venus, Neptune, and almost certainly the Moon. EVAM intuition is very strong and has favored at times the solution of many really difficult cases. In Capricorn, we find Uranus that is drastically opposed to Venus, no space there for the sentimentalisms. From the past to nowadays, the Italian police state chief Giovanni De Gennaro. In his biographical notes, available on the site of the Police of State, you can read that Giovanni De Gennaro was born to Reggio Calabria on August 14th, 1948, graduated in jurisprudence in La Sapienza University in Rome. He enters in 1973 to belong to the state police rolls with the degree of commissioner. He is assigned to the department Questura PF Alexandria and subsequently transferred to the Questura in Rome with the charge of section narcotics executive, to then pass to Lazio Criminal Pol direction. In 1984, he is transferred to the Central Direction of the Criminal Police to direct the Anti-Crime Central Nucleus and later the Operational Central Service. He was being promoted twice for extraordinary worth. The first time in 1980 as Vice Questore Aggiunto, Vice Sheriff, after a fire conflict inside the Belgian embassy in Rome that allowed him to free about 30 hostages threatened by a lunatic who was seriously hurt, a diplomat. In 1990 became superior executive after the happy conclusion of an important series of operations to international level against the Sicilian mafia. At the end of 1991, the Minister of the Inner Businesses gave him the Anti-Mafia Detective Direction Vice Manager charge. Craftsman of important investigations has been placing side by side for 11 non-stop years the anti-mafia action of Judge Giovanni Falcone to the individualization of the clandestine laboratories for the heroin refinement in Sicily, to the investigations on the Italian front of the pizza connection, to the Koba Kim drug trafficker arrested in Thailand, to the ideation, management, and conclusion of the Iron Tower investigation, to the important fugitives arrest Zaza Vernengo Lucchesi. He personally has besides directed the investigations phases which have conducted to the liberation of Esterana Rica, Carmen del Prete, Auguste de Megni, and Patrizia Tacchella. Well known in the international environment, he has developed intense relationships of collaboration with the DEA and the FBI in America, with the Canadian and Australian police, and he has also opened the road to important collaborations in other foreign countries, as the Dominican Republic, where in 1988 he has personally brought to arrest the known mafioso Thomas Inzerillo. He was nominated Chef of the Police from the Ministers' Council on May 26, 2000. Under the astral profile, De Gennaro is strongly characterized by the element fire, having just 4 planets, Pluto, Sun, Mercury, and Saturn in Leo, and 2, Jupiter and Moon in Sagittarius, connected among them by trines that underline the dynamism and the energy that characterize De Gennaro's personality, and united to a strong love for the justice, Mars and Neptune in Libra, which are connected through sextiles to the planets just quoted, have directed since adolescence his libido toward the struggle to the crime in every demonstration of his. We find again in this chart a sort of synthesis of what emerged by this small study. Even here we find, in fact, the Sun in aspect to Saturn, conjunction, and Mars-Pluto, sextile. The Moon and Jupiter in Sagittarius in aspect to Neptune, they also underlines the great recognition that just in the United States, De Gennaro has received, but also the meaningful actions mostly direct against the traffic of drug Neptune.